We're coming off an election week in Iowa that decided some important races, and we're going into a huge political year in 2026. Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds, U.S. Senator Joni Ernst of Iowa, and U.S. Senator Dick Durbin of Illinois all announced they will not run for re-election next year. Several candidates already declared their intention to run for those open seats. And get ready to see a lot of campaign ads the next several months going into those primaries, then the general election. You're already seeing some now. Here's a breakdown of next year's election calendar. First comes the Illinois primary on March 17th. Iowa's primary is scheduled for June 2nd. Those will narrow down the fields for the general election in both states on November 3rd. Now, this morning, we're focused on the Democratic primary in Iowa's race for governor. Two candidates now vying for their party's nomination, Rob Sand and Julie Stoush. Now, we will get to know Rob Sand a little better today. He was born and raised in Decorah. Sand got his bachelor's degree in political science from Brown University. He earned his law degree from the University of Iowa. After college and before law school, Sand worked on a few Democratic political campaigns. Then he put his law degree to use. He worked as the Assistant Attorney General of Iowa from 2010 to 2017, then was elected Iowa's state auditor in 2018, a job he still holds today. That roughly 7 months until next year's Iowa primary seems like a long time away. It hasn't stopped the candidates running for governor trying to position their campaigns to win the nomination and be on next November's general election ballot. One of those candidates who's been at full speed since launching his campaign for governor, State Auditor Rob Sand, joins us for a conversation this morning. Welcome back to the program.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, you've already been barnstorming the state. Why do so much so fast? Perhaps risking voter fatigue to the point they're not motivated to show up at the polls in June.
You know, I guess I'd say this, different message. I think people are sick of politics. The point of this campaign is not redder or bluer, but better and truer. My background is 7 years as Chief Public Corruption Prosecutor, 2 terms as State Auditor. Neither of those jobs are particularly political. I don't really like politics. I think when you have a message that is that different, and when you're talking about literally ending the system of the lesser of two evils, you might want to get started earlier so people can actually have a chance to listen in and have it catch them in that way.
You certainly can't avoid being a politician at this point, though. You are the favorite to win the Democratic Party's nomination at this early stage of the game. Certainly a lot can change between now and then. Iowa has swung solidly Republican over the last 10 years, it's safe to say. What makes you think a Democrat can win the governor's race?
You know, look, a lot of people in this state have voted for Donald Trump and then voted for me. A lot of people in this state voted for Governor Kim Reynolds and at the same time voted for me. My brand is different. I am different. I think a lot of people look at politics and they're willing to see that, okay, yes, we have two parties, but most of us aren't particularly tickled with either of them. Neither, I would say, are doing a bang-up job of solving all of our problems. And I think when people get to know me, they see that I'm someone that isn't really focused on the party stuff so much as public service. And I think they're willing to differentiate in that way.
It's certainly hard to separate the party stuff that when you're assuming you get elected, how can you effectively govern and get your agenda adopted if Republicans maintain control of both chambers, as is probably likely at this point?
And I say that's guaranteed, honestly. And I think that's part of the reason that more people will want to vote for me. I don't think that people like the direction of the state of Iowa right now. They gutted the auditor's office, right? I mean, we literally uncovered a record amount of misspent money. And the answer to that, according to the legislature, was to change the law so that state agencies can hide misspent money from the auditor. I think we've had enough of this. You want public service, you want a common sense focus, make it so that the Republican legislature has got to work with me as the governor, and then every budget that passes, every law that passes is going to have approval from both parties.
Well, here you have now Republicans, though, they're already focusing their criticism toward you. They say you're trying to paint yourself as a moderate when you're really an extreme liberal. That's their words. And Randy Feenstra recently ran a campaign against you, claiming that you support anti-police radicals, higher taxes, and men in girls' bathrooms, playing the transgender card there, if you will. How do you respond?
None of those things are true. I hope that everybody in the state of Iowa has an opportunity to actually go look at what he claims as his sources for these things. Randy, maybe on his way back to D.C., should review the 9th commandment, thou shalt not bear false witness. I have run my campaigns in 2018 and 2022 being honest as I hold my opponents accountable for their mistakes. This kind of D.C. stuff, they don't really care about the honesty piece of that.
But there's surely going to be more of that going into the general election or even during the primary.
I can't control whether or not other people choose to lie. It's their question whether or not they want to have to defend themselves at the pearly gates.
Now, you've been critical of the implementation of the Students First Act, Iowa's version of a school voucher program that provides money for families to go to private school, send their kids to private school. You're concerned about it being accountable, it being abused. Would you try to get rid of it if elected, or would you try to fix it, and how so?
Here's what I think that we can do. Again, it's going to be me working with the Republican legislature, the same legislature that passed this bill. I think we can take a bill from a place that is bad to a place where there's more agreement that it is not as bad. Here's how. We should be able to see how the money is getting spent. These are tax dollars. I want public oversight of public money. Right now we're not allowed to audit it, and they literally have only one thing, private schools, that they can't do with these hundreds of millions of dollars. They can't pay a rebate. But that's it. I also don't think that we should be paying this benefit to the wealthiest families in the state of Iowa who don't need it in order to afford this. I tend to think that when we have a over $1 billion annual budget deficit in the state of Iowa, that we should be making sure we're using money carefully, and that doesn't qualify. And I think that we should be telling public schools, you want to take public money, you got to take the public. No more picking and choosing which students are going to come in the front door.
So you think means testing to some extent for the voucher program?
The wealthiest people in Iowa are doing just fine without this program. When we have a $1 billion annual budget deficit, yeah, we should be doing means testing. We shouldn't be giving that out to the people who write that check for tuition and can't even feel it.
What about the fetal heartbeat loss really being challenged in the court? Is this something you would try to reverse? Is this something that's just going to be a given for Iowa?
We're going to have, if it's me getting elected working with a Republican legislature, we're just going to be done with the culture wars. So they send me culture war bills, I'm going to veto them. What we should be fixing is, we are 48th for personal income growth in America, right? We're #1 for cancer growth, right? Our education system, which we put on our quarter, is now in the middle of the pack. Those are the sorts of issues that we should be addressing, the things that impact the lives of every single Iowan.
One of the priorities you list on your website is that you would get rid of the management of a Medicaid by private company through an executive order. How can you ensure that the state manages it effectively and efficiently? That's been one of the criticisms of the program in the past when it was run by the state.
Bottom line is this, right? We audited privatized Medicaid. We saw a 500% increase in illegal denials of care, right? And if you talk to medical providers across the state of Iowa, their costs are going up, which means our costs are going up because they have to hire people whose full-time job it is to fight with these private companies to get paid. I know that we can do a better job running this through the state of Iowa because we did in the past. We had an innovative system called the Iowa Medicaid Enterprise. We had actually incorporated a lot of the money-saving things that some of the MCOs do into the program already. There's no reasons those tricks can't be done when it's run at the state than rather being run by some out-of-state companies willing to and looking at and prioritizing taking profits out of this.
Do you expect much pushback from the legislature if you try to do something like that?
That's something that we can do with executive order. So that's one thing where we can make a difference and get that fixed.
Another priority you mentioned is early education. You call it universal all-day pre-kindergarten. Would that be something provided in public schools or Head Start programs?
I think it depends on where you do it. I see that as being something where you want to have that through the public schools so it's available to everyone, but certainly Head Start is an important program too. The wonderful thing about this is if we means test the school vouchers program, we can actually use that savings to cover that early preschool education for everybody, and it's a great investment. $17 we save in the long run, tax dollars, for every dollar that we invest in early childhood education, because those kids that get that leg up when they're really little, more likely to graduate from high school, less likely to commit crime, less likely to be on public assistance.
Is there enough money, you think, in the program, in the voucher program to finance it, you're saying?
Yeah.
You're guaranteeing, you already know that?
Well, and that's while, again, that voucher program with a Republican legislature, if I'm elected, will continue. I'm just saying we can means test it.
Sure, but you're saying the savings from that is enough to fund universal all-day pre-K?
Yeah.
Iowa State Auditor Rob Sand, and candidate for Iowa Governor. Thanks for the conversation. Good luck with the rest of the campaign. I'm sure we'll talk before then.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for having me.